All right. Welcome to the Nelson and Friends talk show. This here is my friend Chad Cromwell. Thank you so much, Chad, for being
man.
here.
I'm glad to be here.
Right on.
Thank you.
Chad and I have been friends for a good 3 or 4 years. Two important details to know about Chad. Chad always has a toothpick in his mouth, and is just a badass motherfucker.
Well, I'm a badass ex-smoker is what I am.
There you go. There you go. So first question for you, simple one, is why drums and how long have you been playing?
Oh, boy. Okay. Why drums? Why would that be the chosen instrument?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom was a classical pianist.
Okay.
And she earned her money teaching as well as playing, but she taught, and she was 3-4 hours a day, students coming and going. And as a little bitty kid, I would just hang out underneath the soundboard of the piano while she taught, as long as I was quiet. And so growing up, I was just always around a piano, a melody instrument. And I never was fascinated with the piano, even though I was encouraged to take it up and,
Sure.
give that a go. I just never wanted to. So I was more interested in playing sports and hanging out with the kids in the street and, just doing that sort of thing, not musical at all. And one Christmas, I was 8, and this particular Christmas, 2 brothers that lived down the street, Fred and Jim Malonis, I'll never forget them. It's a beautiful Greek family. And they got their Christmas presents, and I got called to come to their house to see what they got. And I went there, and there was a red sparkle drum set, and then also a silver tone electric guitar that had the amplifier built into the case.
Sure.
Right? This is dating me now a little bit, how much I've been doing this. But anyway, I walked in and I saw these musical instruments, and I'd never been around stuff like that before. And I sat down behind the drum kit, which, by the way, both of these things came from the Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Oh, of course.
Okay? So these were Sears drums, or
I remember
whoever
those.
made them, And I sat down behind them and just played, not with technique or anything, but I could play a beat. I just could. I don't know why. And I really got excited about that and thought that was really like, wow, I like that. And that was about it. So that was my exposure to drums, and it really was like the onset of a relationship that really wouldn't begin until I was, 12 or 13, 12 would be the year that I would actually really start the relationship with the drum set, where I got passionate about it.
Sure.
Before that, it was just like, oh, this is fun. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, this is really cool. Yeah, okay, let's go play baseball.
Sure,
let's go
sure.
flirt with the girl down the street. All that. And so, but when I was 12, I moved. Our family moved to a different part of the city, and when that happened, I lost my base of friends and stuff I liked to do, and all.
Sure.
And so I was kind of like, I was sort of on my own to reinvent myself, and I was pissed off about having to move away from my buddies. And somehow the drum set thing came back up in my, I guess, coping mechanism. I don't know exactly why, but I just said, I want some drums. You know, I want to do that. And so I started down that path, and my parents helped me to get started on a kit. And really, from then on, I got more and more serious about actually being a drummer, right?
Right on.
I didn't get into lessons or anything like that. I'm self-taught.
Yeah.
But that was the jump off point when I was 12.
Okay.
And by the time I was 18, I was 2 weeks after graduating from high school, I was on a plane moving to London to be in a band that got signed by Elton John's label.
Wow.
It was called Rocket Records.
Was that like your first
That was
paid gig experience and so forth?
That
or
was
were
my
you kind of-
first like serious career moment. Like,
What was
wow.
that band called?
Lash LaRue. It was a
Okay.
trio. Power punk. We wore Cub Scout uniforms.
Okay. that's badass.
It was like we had Marshall Stacks, bass, drums, guitar, and we played kind of Memphis soul, rock, edgy, whatever. I don't know what you called this stuff. That's why I call it kind of power punk.
Sounds like it
Pop
was big
punk, I don't
Marshall
know.
stacks and
Yeah,
so forth.
it
That's
was fun.
badass.
It was really
That's
fun.
awesome.
And so, you know, like, I was living in London, and I just thought, well, this is it. You know, I graduate from high school, become a rock star. It's just like that. It's easy. This is easy. I'm going to be rich in a couple of years, and, you know.
How long were you with them until you?
I was
did
with
your
them
next thing?
for 6 months.
Wow,
We
it's
went
short.
from record deal to losing record deal to broke to thank God I've got a return ticket that I can get on
Sure.
and go back to Memphis and like figure out what I'm going to do. You know,
Did it take some time, or did you have some things kind of already?
it took some
in the
time.
pipeline?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
slow burn back up the hill. You know,
Sure.
but yeah. So that's. I think I'm answering your question. I think that was like the why drums. Well, because of that, you know, and I was 8 when it started.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so I've been doing it now.
20 years.
Yeah, 20, let's just say 20. Yeah, 20's good. Well, when we'll leave the other decades out of it. Yeah.
That's
I've been
awesome,
doing
man.
this shit a long time, bro.
Oh, well, it shows, man. It definitely shows. All right. Can you tell me how many years you've been with Neil Young, and also how you got that chair
Yeah.
with him to begin with?
Yeah. Well, starting with how I got that chair would be there's a dear old friend of mine called Nico Bolas, who's a recording engineer in from Los Angeles. Silver Lake is where he grew up, by the way. And so I met Nico in Memphis in '86, I think it was. And I believe that's right. He was hired to come in as an independent recording engineer to record a record for an artist named Rob Junkless that I was involved with for his first record on Manhattan Records. So we met, and I ended up renting the second bedroom in the apartment that I had in downtown Memphis. So we became really close friends over the course of, at least 2 months. We were together recording this record. And
how old you were during that time, or do you?
let's see, that would have been 24, 26 or 7, something like that. And so that relationship grew further from the initial thing, and a couple of things happened. The first opportunity that Nico created that I really appreciate is that he got me an audition for the Journey tour, which was going to be the last tour that Steve Perry was a part of.
Wow.
And
That's pretty cool.
there were over 150 auditions
Oh my
for
gosh.
that chair. And I was one of the people that got to go and audition, which was absolutely, unequivocally the scariest thing I've ever, to this day, ever gone through.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
I won't go into all the details as to why that was such a scary thing. But what I do remember fondly was Randy Jackson was the bass player in the band at the time.
Okay.
And Randy and I played together, and I'm this young punk. Nobody knows who the hell I am. You know, what the fuck is this guy doing here? You know, like, why, what is, you know? And man, Randy really made me feel at home. And I really am grateful for that. Because it wasn't entirely that way in the other chairs.
Sure.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And so
I can see that.
it didn't work out, but it took a long time to find out that it wasn't going to work out. So I had to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for them to decide what they wanted to do, and it was nerve-wracking. That's a whole other story. But ultimately, it didn't work out. So fast forward to whatever it was, 6-8 months later, I get a call, and it's Nico again saying, hey, man, look, Neil is doing a blues horn band concept thing that he wants to do. It's called Neil Young and the Blue Notes. And it you know, the drum chair is just not, it's not working out. And we need, you know, we, meaning Neil, needs somebody that gets how to swing with blues music, you know, how, you know. And he goes, I know you would know how to do that, being from Memphis. I went, oh, well, okay, yeah, I do know how to do that. And he goes, well, come on out here. Come to LA and let's give it a go. And I went, great. So they flew me out there. It was either record plant mobile truck, remote truck, or A&M. I forget whose remote truck it was. It was a control room on wheels, basically, and parked at SIR in Hollywood.
Okay.
So I show up from the airport. I go straight to SIR. I walk in there, and you know, it's Neil world in there. And Neil walks up, and Nico goes, I want to introduce you to Neil. And so he introduced us, and Neil goes, hey, man, I'm Shaky. That's how Shaky.
Oh, okay.
Nice to meet you. I'm Shaky. Well, I finally figured out, okay, Shaky is Shaky, you know, and so we just kind of hung around for a while, and I got situated with the backline kit. You know, J-Mo was there to drum tech and make sure whoever was playing that was comfortable with whatever they needed. And
he was the tech at the get-go, you're saying, from that gig?
Well, he was the tech on the recording date.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that we were attempting to do. So we started playing, and the next thing I know, it's like 3 or 4 days later, and we've done the record. It's done. And that started my journey with Neil in 1987.
Wow.
That's when it began.
Yep.
And it still goes on to this day. We were just in touch just a couple of weeks ago.
Ah.
And what everybody who knows Neil or about Neil, everyone knows that nothing goes on and on and on and on nonstop. Neil evolves into different projects, and sometimes he brings different people in to do that.
Yeah.
But he usually operates within an inner circle, which is like a big extended family of players that he revisits.
Yeah.
Like a wheel, you know?
Sure.
And so I've been on that wheel a few times with him through all those years. And we've managed to do some really good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
On that wheel. Rockin' in the Free World being
I knew that was
record,
you.
Freedom.
Yep.
That was a really good one. And the Blue Note stuff. It's another cool record that we did called Prairie Wind that led to really cool stuff. that was actually filmed here at the Ryman.
Okay.
We did there was a movie, Jonathan Demme directed it, called Golden Heart. If you've not seen it, you should see it.
I've not seen it yet.
There's a clothing designer here named Manuel that's very famous, and he designed all of the costumes for this film that was shot at the Ryman over 2 nights. And it's you got to see it.
I would love to see
really,
it.
really good.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing long story that led to the making of that record and to the film that was really, the moments of making the record were really intense because he was dealing with a brain aneurysm at the time that had to be surgically handled. And when you go in to manage something like that, it can be complicated. And you never really quite know for sure how you're going to come out the other end of something like that. So there was a lot of intensity about the making of that record that was incredible. You know, I'll never forget it. Just incredible. And that was done here.
What time was this?
This would have been
90s?
2006. Yeah. It's either 2005 or 2006.
Wow.
All right. And it's 2005.
Okay.
That's exactly, because that's when it was. And so we did that record, and then there was another record that we did called Living with War. That was like a protest record, or like a documentation of life for a soldier, life in wartime. Really, really interesting record. And that record led to the reuniting of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah.
So we went
Love
out
that stuff
and
too.
toured and supported Living with War
Wow.
with CSNY. That was what it was.
That's too cool.
So we got
man.
to play
That's
all
awesome.
those amazing songs.
Yeah.
And then the Living with War project as well. And
Yeah.
it was very, very, very controversial.
Yeah. This
And-
is some of my favorite stuff, though.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
a big fan of all that stuff.
Oh yeah, it was really cool. A really great experience. So anyway, yeah, I've had a very long, great relationship with Neil, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the music we've gotten to do together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Us too.
Yeah.
Is there, I know this is a hard thing to answer, but is there maybe like 1 or 2 stories in particular that you could share, like fun or goofy or anything?
About Neil?
With Neil over the years? Or just like, I don't know, anything quirky or something that sticks out to
Well,
you?
man, there's a couple of things I could tell you. There's 2 things, and help me remember them. I'm going to tell you a story about Elvis, okay?
Okay.
Right? And then, but first I'm going to, and remember that.
Yeah.
But then
I will.
first I'm going to tell you a story about the expression is the ox, okay? So in all my years of working with Neil, there's a terminology that he gave me and every other drummer that's ever played with him, and it's called getting the ox. All right, and I didn't know what in the hell it was. I just knew what the term, I knew what it was. But what that is, and to a drummer, it's significant because it's about getting into a creative space that doesn't have to do necessarily with what our job is as a drummer. And so fundamentally, our job as a drummer is to do what? Is to hold the band together.
Yeah, keep time.
To keep time. To be the stabilizing force for the performance, right?
Yeah.
And play correctly. Don't fuck up.
Not too many notes.
Not too many. Don't do all this. And so, so early on in the earlier years of me working with Neil, the attempt to get to this particular thing called getting the ox was totally mysterious to me.
They never told you what it meant. It was just kind
Not
of
exactly, you know, not because it's
sounds intimidating.
really, really non-specific.
Sure.
But I think I'm going to be able to explain it to you. What it basically means is like this. The analogy would be, let go of the reins of the horse
Okay.
and run.
Okay.
Okay? And have faith that wherever that leads you is the best place to go.
Sure. I think that makes sense.
All right.
Yeah.
And so that's just the analogy. And so what that meant to me musically was, if Neil wants to go into a particular kind of jam, that could be a 15-minute guitar solo.
Sure.
A lot of shit's got to happen in 15 minutes to stay interesting.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
It can't just be diddle 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 woo diddle 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 and jump off an amplifier and set pyro off. That's not what he does.
Yeah.
It's about playing.
Yeah.
And it's about this kind of like getting in this space as players that has nothing to do about how badass you are playing jazz. It's got nothing to do with how badass you can play rock, and nothing to do with how badass you can stay locked to a click. It's none of that. It's the ability to let go
Sure.
and be completely in a moment that may imply to a purist that you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay? Because you're in this journey with him. And that's why people can't take their eyes off of him when they go see him perform.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's coming next.
It's kind of exciting. Keeps
Yeah,
you on
it's
your toes.
super exciting.
Especially in a live setting.
Yeah.
Where like most gigs, you're playing the same thing every
Yeah.
night. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to keep it fun.
It's not that.
That's awesome.
It's not that. And
That's a
we
dream
never
come
even
true.
knew what the set list would be from night to night.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, it was just wow.
Really?
Oh,
So
yeah.
before you'd play, he would just like
before
he
we
would
would
fire
play,
off.
you know, the only thing. Well, yeah, I mean, the front of house guy was just having fits about it because it's like, I can't set the console out front in front of house if I don't know what you're doing.
Sure.
You know, at least give me the first song. Give me, you know, this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and he had a point, you know.
Yeah.
So, so Neil would give him the first song.
And the rest of it would just
The
be
rest of
free
it,
for all.
we'd have a set list, but it didn't mean
Wow.
shit, you know. So
That's nerve-wracking, but it probably kept it super fun. I'd imagine like every night was like a new adventure.
It was awesome.
Versus just kind of doing your thing.
Yeah. So what I had to do was unlearn my training, because my training coming up in Memphis with R&B and the way, you know, being taught by Jim Stewart and Bobby Manuel in the studio how to be a recording drummer for a living.
Yeah.
You know, well, that was structured playing, very
Very
structured.
much so. Yeah.
You know, all about groove, all about solid, steady, minimalist playing, you know.
Yep.
And the art of making R&B records, you know.
Yeah.
So when I got involved with Neil, I had to unlearn a lot of that. It took a lot of years, okay, a lot of years. So fast forward, 2008, we're down in Australia, and I think we were in Brisbane. No, we were in Melbourne, and it was a day off, and we were out wandering around, just farting around. And we ended up at this restaurant, ate lunch, and came outside, and for whatever reason, we started talking about the gig, you know. And this is 20 plus years after I first started working with him. And so we're standing out waiting on the van to come pick us up or whatever, just standing on the curb, and we're talking about the gig, and he just says this to me. He goes, you know what? He goes, there's only one other drummer that gets the ox besides you.
That's a high compliment.
Yeah, it was a massive moment in my life
Yeah.
as a musician.
When did you say that was again?
That was 2008.
Okay. So at
And,
this time, you've already been playing with them for...
Since '87.
Wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when he said that to me, it was like, I've heard about getting the ox for a lot of years, and I've had him turn around at me during gigs and looking at me like I completely fucked up.
Sure.
Pissed.
Oh, man.
What the, all that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, he finally said, "You got it now."
Wow.
And I went,
Must have felt good. Sure.
So, I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And the other drummer is Ralph Molina in Crazy Horse.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're blessed with this distinction of being able to get the ox with him.
That's pretty damn cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big, big kind of thing. So a rite of passage kind of a moment for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now let's get back to Elvis.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I forget what tour. I think it was a Blue Notes tour, like in '87, and we went up to Humboldt County in Northern California to play a show up there, and Humboldt is very well known for high quality marijuana production. Mm-hmm. And it's also very well known as a real bohemian kind of community. Beautiful place.
Sure.
Just beautiful.
You said Northern California?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we go up there. We're in buses. We go up ahead of Neil, and we get up there, and on his way to Humboldt, what we get is a message from Neil's driver to the tour manager that they're stopped on the way somewhere between San Francisco and the destination where we are. And they said we had to pull over, and Elvis is missing, and we're not going anywhere. We can't. We got to find Elvis. And we're all just going, oh man, well then okay, what? This is not good. Well, Elvis is his dog. He's a blue tick hound dog, right? And they pulled over on the side of the freeway. He went everywhere with me.
Okay.
They pull over on the side of the freeway, and to pee and do whatever. And
sure.
Elvis picked up a scent of a deer or whatever. Gone. Right? In the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Neil is stuck out there. Well, finally, he has to leave to come do this gig. He's having to make the decision to leave his dog.
Oh, that's hard.
Oh, man, it was a very, very heavy thing.
Yeah.
And so he did. He came to the gig. Well, what they did is someone stayed behind, and I forget who did. I really forget who did. But Neil left several articles of his clothing, things that would smell like Neil.
Sure.
Left that with this person. And Neil gets to the gig with us, and he's really, really heartbroken, you know.
Sure, of course.
Right before we go on stage, a phone call comes, and Elvis came back
there we go.
to the scene of the crime because of those clothes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, smart dog.
And so Neil went on stage, a very happy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that stands out in my mind. That's like, I'll never forget the look on his face, A, when he got to Humboldt and his dog wasn't with him, and B, when he found out he was on his way.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Much happier show.
A much happier show. Yeah.
Right on.
So that's a couple I got a
Oh,
million
that's a good
more,
one.
but
Oh, I know you do. That's awesome, man. Is there anybody else you'd want me to ask about other than Joe and Stevie? I mean, there's fucking like 50 artists in that list that like I love, but those are probably
well,
top
just
three
the
for
ones
me.
that stand out to you. You know, I mean, like I say, I mean, there's a whole lot of people we can talk about.
Yeah.
You know,
Anybody that you like really would want to honor in that way, or is it kind of you're just open to where it goes?
you know, I mean, you know, I spent 10 years with Mark Knopfler, and you know, when we parted company, it was personal reasons, and kind of stays that way.
Sure.
But what I would say is my experience with him as a you know, I'm a huge fan, and getting to play those Dire Straits songs, and getting to do the first, I think, 5 or 6 of his solo records after Dire Straits
Yeah.
disbanded was a real gift for me to get to be a part of, you know. And Mark is a consummate musician, and I think he's a master of storytelling and dynamics.
Yeah, definitely.
And I learned a lot about dynamics working with him. And
Do you remember how old you were when you were doing that?
yeah, that was like, I think I started working with him in my mid-30s, you
Okay.
know, mid to late 30s, somewhere around in there.
Yeah. So after Neil, you kinda
Yeah.
bumped that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark's story is after.
Or during that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, but after.
Because I was bouncing back and forth between Peter Frampton and Mark.
It's
You
another
know,
one.
and so
Peter.
if we weren't touring and recording with Mark, I would work with Peter, and that was the way that had to be, you know.
Yeah.
My job was Mark, but I loved working with Peter too, but I
Man.
couldn't.
I mean, there's so many of the greatest of all time.
Oh yeah, I mean these guys are.
How did that? I mean, if you don't mind me, are we still rolling? I might as well just use it. But how did a lot of that happen? To just kind of like a snowball when you got one of these great gigs, it just kind of snowballed into
I
the
think
next
it is.
thing.
Yeah, you know that you're, you know, being in your 20s and 30s. Those are, you know, arc kind of years of the rise of a career for most guys. You know.
Yeah.
One thing sort of led to the next. You know, like
Sure.
Joe Walsh was my very first.
So that was the one that kind of.
That was my first gig working for a bona fide rock star.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, yeah. And that started in 1986 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that'd be fun to talk about. You told me some funny stories about Joe. A couple of them.
Yeah.
But,
I think
maybe
I know about one
ones
of them.
that you're comfortable sharing with
Yeah.
with a few of your fans.
There's a
might
couple.
Be fun.
All right, Joe. I'm going to do a couple. Sorry, man. Okay, the first one I'll tell you is, we were doing this gig. We were doing this gig in Austin, and it was like a river fest. I don't know what it's called now, if it even still is that. But have you ever been to Austin?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
I love Austin.
Well, you know how 6th Street, the 6th Street bridge that goes across the river into downtown. Well, on the opposite side of the downtown side of that bridge was where this site was, where they would have a music festival every year.
Okay.
And Joe was on the gig, and this particular gig, Nick Lowe was on it, and Bonnie was on it, and I forget who else, but anyway, it was a really cool lineup
Yeah.
of artists.
Sounds like
Well,
it. Jeez.
this was back in the day of excess for all of us, and the
80s. You think? Okay. So,
Yeah.
Yep. Uh-huh.
and we checked into, I believe it's the very first Four Seasons hotel in the U.S.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the first one was opened in Austin on the river. You know,
I'm not surprised by that.
easily the nicest hotel I've ever stayed in at that point.
Sure.
You know, and so we get in there. Spend the night, and I'm just thinking, man, what an awesome place. You know, this is just wow. You know, get a call from the tour manager the next morning. Pack your shit. We got to get out of here.
Oh,
Why?
gosh.
Why? Well, yeah, Joe got in a little bit of trouble last night. And, man, I'm sorry, Joe, but I'm telling this. I hope I don't get in too much trouble. But Joe's famous for doing some hotel rearranging through the years.
What do you mean, shuffling things
mean,
around?
like, no, I
literally?
mean like cutting holes in walls with a chainsaw.
Sure.
And, yeah, you know, like really redecorating.
Yeah, very
you
much
know,
so.
renovating. You know, property improvement.
Sure.
And this wasn't that extreme, but he got fascinated with, I forget what they're called. It's martial art. Those star weapon things that
Like ninja stars that you throw.
you know, and they
sure.
stick, and whack, you know, they
Wow.
stick into whatever.
Badass, yeah.
Well, he was target practicing with an original piece of art on the wall in his room,
Uh-oh.
and housekeeping reported it, and we were invited to leave immediately.
Oh, man.
Now that's ancient, old stuff, and you know, it all got worked out, and it, you know, no, really, ultimately, it wasn't that bad, but
Sure.
it was a
Leaves a
brand
fun
new
story.
hotel.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, you know, so that's one,
Wow.
and then there's another one, another story that happened at the Santa Barbara Ball, and I think this might be a story you remember.
Okay.
So we're doing this gig at Santa Barbara Ball, and he was wearing, at the time it was like this white parachute.
I've heard this, yep.
Yeah. This white parachute, kind of those big balloon kind of, it was kind of in style for a while with rappers or whatever.
Yep,
And
I
he
remember those.
decided he was gonna sport that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's like satin white kind of gig outfit.
Yeah.
And we're playing the gig.
Like parachute material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and all of a sudden, you know, whatever, his stomach's not feeling so good. And so it becomes a medical, not a medical emergency, but a intestinal one. And so the next thing I know, he comes around behind the drum riser, and wow, he has had an accident.
You could tell from him just walking.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
So he had to suit up, regroup, put some new
Yeah.
gear on.
Were people already clapping and cheering for him as he was coming out? And then he had
No,
to,
I mean, somehow, I don't remember the details now of how he stayed discreetly,
Oh, that's
but
good.
it was right behind me,
Oh, man.
you know, and we were a three-piece band.
Yeah.
So there aren't a lot of different places to look on stage.
Sure.
So anyway, it all worked out fine. He was okay.
Yeah.
But God, I was laughing my ass off. And okay, so I'll give you one more real quick one on Joe. This was when we were on tour with the Doobie Brothers. So it was two bands. Both bands had double drummers. Right?
Okay.
So it was a hell of a tour. I mean, it was really fun.
Yeah.
And at
You
the
said
end,
both, so your band had a double drummer?
Huh?
You said both bands had a double
Both
drummer?
bands, yeah.
Okay.
So Joe Vitale and I were the drummers
Okay.
with Joe, and I don't remember the drummers' names
For the
with
Doobie Brothers.
at the time. I don't know, but similar kind of band lineup, you know. And so when the tour was over with, they started messing with us, and so they sent. I think, if I remember right, when we were doing our show on the last night, they hired, I think it was male strippers and female strippers to come on stage while we were playing, unknown to us, you know. And it's a little murky, my memory about that, but it was definitely suggestive, you know.
Sure.
And, you know.
Joe was in on it, or he didn't know?
No, Joe didn't know it was coming at him.
Oh, sure.
They were playing
as you
the
guys
joke
were
on
performing.
Joe.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Yep.
So so it happens, which just basically means Joe's going to get even.
Yeah.
So Joe calls. It wasn't the very last show. It was like a couple of shows before the end. Then he arranges to hire like zoo animals. You know, like a bunch of different animals. You know, and the Doobies are playing at the end of the tour, and all of a sudden these zoo animals are walked onto the stage.
Oh my gosh.
In front of the audience, and everybody goes nuts.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
Did they stop performing, or did they just keep playing through their set?
Yeah, a little bit of, not totally stop, but definitely disruptive.
Sure.
You know, because the animals are freaked out
Yeah.
because of the loud
Of course.
music.
Yeah.
Wow, you know, it was fun. There was usually never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Touring with Joe was.
That sounds like it'd be really fun.
It was super fun.
Yeah.
And man, Joe is, God, he's so good.
And you're still playing with Joe now.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I mean, we haven't been for a while because of the Eagles and COVID.
Sure.
And all that. But, you know, yeah. You know, hopefully we'll get to reconvene again. Yeah.
All right. Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks.
Another one of my personal favorites. If you have any stories that you would like to share.
Well, I mean,
know it's a recording thing.
I can share a little bit. I mean, I got to do a record with her a few years ago that Dave Stewart produced.
Do you remember
like one of my
era of
favorite
that?
people. Oh, it was just a few years ago.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Dave Stewart's like one of my favorite people, period. But she wanted to do another record, and Dave was telling her about the band here that record with him. And he was just saying, look, you know, you want to make a great record, and you want to make a great record in a very short period of time. Let's do it in Nashville. Let's get my guys together and do it there, you know. And her pace, what she's accustomed to doing is a far slower pace, you know, and taking lots of time, and, you know, whatever the pace is, I don't know. I only know the one we did with her.
Which was very fast-paced.
Very fast, and very fast, like incredibly fast for her. She's just not accustomed to that.
Sure.
But that was a trip working with her. But she was really, really sweet and really interesting. You know, she's basically a poet. And the way that she brought the material in, these were poems that she'd written over a lot of years about a lot of different subjects. And she would bring those lyrics in, and with like a very basic musical outline to accompany the lyric. And we would, I think one or two of them were really pretty well mapped out, and the rest of it was like, we kind of helped come up with the arrangement that fit the lyric. Because if you listen to her songs, her lyric cadence is really unique.
Yeah.
And so it's just not super simple, I guess is the best way I know how to say it. But so you have to craft the music around the lyrical content and her melody, her sense of melody, and it's complex. And so it was really fun to work with her. And I think after the first day or two, she really started to enjoy the process of moving at the rate of speed
Oh,
that we
good.
were moving. Because I don't think it was really super comfortable at first.
Sure.
I think it was, she was going, wait, what? Wait a minute. You know,
Sure,
like,
sure.
hang on a second here. And
Yeah.
so, but the record's called 24 Karat.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's there's some really cool stuff on it.
Yeah.
And so that's my Stevie Nicks
That's very cool.
kind of like happy moment, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a legend.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, she's awesome.
After playing with so many iconic artists over the years, is there anybody that you would really dream of playing that you have not played for already? Like a all-time favorite that you would just kill to play for? Already would be on.
Well, I mean, you know, I think we've talked about this before, but you know, I got to perform a little bit with Paul McCartney at the end
I do
of
remember that.
2009 with Neil. Our very last gig was the Hyde Park Calling Festival, which is a big festival in central London. And he came, he came to see Neil, their friends, and I think, and so in '08, when we were just about to, we were in production rehearsals in Florence. Was it Florence? Yeah, it was Florence. And Neil called me to his room one afternoon before rehearsal, and he just said, you know, which I thought was kind of like, oh, I'm in trouble, and I don't know, well, we haven't even started yet. What's going on here, you know? Anyway, I went into his room, sat down. He goes, "Hey man, I want to play something for you." I went, "Okay." He's going to play a song or whatever that he wants me to learn. And he put on "Day in the Life" by the Beatles, right? And so I'm sitting with Neil in this unbelievable hotel, and we're listening to "Day in the Life." Why is he calling me to his room to listen to "Day in the Life"?
And he still hasn't told you at this point. Wow.
And so we listened to the song all the way through. It's over with, and I went, cool, you know, like, cool. Now what, you know? I'm just thinking, what's going on here? And he goes, I'm gonna ask you something. Okay, what? You think we could do this song? I went, I was kind of like dumbfounded. And then I finally just said, you know what, man? The fact that you even suggest that tells me we have to do this. We got to work this out. We got to do this song. So we started practicing it, you know, at sound checks for a couple of weeks. We rehearsed the song, section by section, you know. And it took some work to really get it in shape. And then we finally started playing it. I don't remember where we first played it, but we started doing it, and it was cool.
Oh, I believe it.
And it wasn't the Beatles' version of it. It was Neil's version of it. You know, the way we played that track, you know. And somehow, I guess Paul got wind of that, and you know, thought that was really. I think he was really flattered by it, and he had never performed it in full.
What do you mean?
Like he'd never done the whole. He'd never done the song live.
Oh wow.
And so I didn't know that, but actually I heard that. I forget who told me that, but I thought that was fascinating. But then I thought, well, that kind of makes sense because they never would have performed that live. The only chance they could have had to do it was the very last thing on top of the Apple building.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
no way to pull that off.
True.
You know, it's such a production thing. And then when he started doing his solo touring, you know, I guess they just never did it. You know, so fast forward to 2 years later almost, we're finally ending the run, and it becomes like a cornerstone musical event in the show. It's a big deal. It's everybody knows we're doing this song.
Sure.
And because it's valid. It's
Yeah.
so we're playing, we're playing the song or we're playing the gig, and I don't know, about halfway through the set, my drum tech Donnie told me, "Hey man, McCartney's here with his fiance." And this is between songs, and I just went, "Wow,
Yeah.
that's
a cool moment.
cool." And he goes, "He's over there by the monitor desk." And so I just like any fan, I went, "There he is. He's way over there." I kind of in the shadows, but I knew he was there. We finished "Rockin' in the Free World," which is the last song of the set, and we came off stage, and Neil's manager was with us, and I said, I hear Paul McCartney's here. Does Neil know? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, frankly, I don't care. And I went, oh, hey, Elliot, I think Neil's going to want to know that Paul is here, and he's over there by the monitor console. Well, fuck that. This is a Neil Young concert. This is his show, and Neil was just being a total manager about it, and this is not about Paul. This is about Neil,
Sure.
I said, man, you better let him know. I said, I'll take that, whatever. I don't know what I said, but I just said, he's going to want to know, man. So I did tell him. And as soon as he told him, Neil just took off across the stage. And everybody goes wild, thinking he's just coming on stage to start the encore. He just walked all the way across the stage and then disappeared again.
Wow.
Well, he went over to see Paul.
Of course.
And his fiance. And he comes back, and then we come on stage and start Day in the Life. And we're sitting here going, oh, man.
Sure.
It's like no pressure, and so we started. We're into doing the deal. It's happening, and when we hit the middle 8 part of the song, which is the part Paul wrote, the woke up.
Yep.
So. As soon as like gong 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 gong, when we hit that part, setting up the bridge, here comes Paul walking on stage.
How cool!
And it took about it took a few seconds for the audience to process what they were seeing.
Sure.
And then you could just see it. It went from like, this is really good, to people were coming unglued.
Yeah.
Like unglued.
Gosh, I can imagine.
And then he sang the middle 8, and then he was like a 10-year-old guy.
Wow.
He was just like, he couldn't believe the moment that was happening. It was
cool
really
is that?
fun,
That's
really,
way
really
cool.
exciting. And so we finished the song, and it was epic. And that was the end of the tour. And then we went to the dressing room afterward. Paul came into the dressing room with us.
Oh,
and
fun.
just hung out with us.
Wow. Oh,
and there was a dinner kind of arranged for after the show, because that was the end of the whole thing, He stayed. He and his fiance, they stayed for the whole thing. He could not have been more delightful to be around. He was super friendly. And Rick, the bass player, God rest his soul, Rick was so awestruck.
Yeah.
He was having a hard time talking.
Oh, sure.
And
I would be too.
He told me
Yeah.
later, he goes, man, my knees were buckling.
Yeah,
underneath me.
I would feel the
I'm standing on
same.
stage playing Day in the Life, and that's...
Yeah, that's the guy.
And Paul's the bass player from the Beatles, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just like for the bass player, it was like incredible.
Yeah.
So,
Man, how cool.
anyway.
What a cool story.
Yeah, so
Rad.
that was like, you know, who wouldn't want to get to play for the Beatles or whatever, but
Yeah.
but that was one of those moments where, like, I'm not sure that I can think of anybody off the top of my head. Maybe playing behind like Otis Redding, that would have
been a great one.
That
Yeah.
would have been an amazing, because my Memphis background and
Yeah.
my training at Stax and all that, and
Yep.
being a generation removed from that,
Yeah.
that really would have been a mighty
Yeah.
experience for me, but impossible, you know.
Gosh.
'Cause he
Paul
was-
McCartney, though, man.
Yeah, I'll take
Shit.
it. I'm
That's
good with
pretty
that.
damn cool.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, honestly, I mean, there are lots and lots and lots of artists I would love the opportunity to work with, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
But I honestly, I really can't think of anybody that's like a bucket list thing. It's like, oh man, I've got this before I'm done.
Yeah.
I've got to play music with fill in the blank. You know, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay, all right there.
Yeah. Let me read this one before we record it. Make sure you like it first. This question says, what would you say to drummers, musicians out there who struggle to get past nerves or confidence on a gig, especially in a show where you hold a big responsibility? Is that something that you feel like
Yeah,
is a fun one?
no,
or-
that's actually, it's a really good question.
Okay.
Because we all go, that's part of our journey, you know, as players, to you start somewhere.
Yeah.
And as you hopefully step up the ladder, the expectations get higher,
They do.
and the requirement of the job gets more intense. And I don't know anybody that doesn't have butterflies in their stomach, especially when you're really like trying to launch yourself
Yeah.
into a career. Because so much is riding on you doing a good job, especially when you're really young.
Yep.
Because you fuck up really early,
Yeah, it's hard
it's
to
really tough
prepare
to,
from that.
yeah, in the drummer's chair, because everything rides on it. You know, I'm really alluding to recording, I guess, but you know, to get hired to play on a recording session, the drummer has got to be solid, and the producer and the record, you know, there's a lot of money riding on the fact that the track's got to be good. If it isn't, they have to go in and do it again with somebody else. That doubles down the budget, right? Anybody else can be replaced.
Yeah.
But
That's
if
true.
the track's shit, you're shit,
Yeah.
no matter
That's
what.
true.
Right? So we get the distinction of getting to be the asshole that didn't make it if we don't make it.
Yep.
You know? So, you know, what I would say to the young guys, you know, that are like trying to get into that place is I think it's the same thing as growing up. If you're a kid trying to start your life, you know, you have to step into the world, and you have to accept the fact that it's not going to get handed to you.
Yeah.
And it's going to take courage and determination, a little bit of craziness, you know, and self-confidence. And if you prepare yourself, then that's the lowest common denominator, is being prepared to do the job.
Yeah.
The ability is what I mean. Okay, so you've got that part. You know you can play. The question is can you play when everything else around you is not going well?
Yeah.
Can you carry that weight? Because you're going to be expected to.
Yeah.
And if you don't, there's serious limitations on how far you're going to get to go doing that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, let the old guy talk, and eventually something decent will come out, hopefully.
Oh, no, it's all been great, man. All right, let's get you another one. I know we've personally sold you a pretty good handful of vintage drums over the years.
Yeah.
But is there something in particular that, well, one, that you pull out for studio, and then two, that you pull out live? Like maybe, not something that we just sold you, but my point from that is I know you have a wide variety of cool drums. Is there something that you typically grab the most for fans listening?
From Nelson's shop?
I'm not just here, just in general. Like if you're on the road, is there something you typically grab, or like a studio thing that you tend to reach for the
that
most?
I can't do without, sort of thing. Yeah, that's my 1920s Ludwig Standard.
Ah, I knew that was on the list. All right.
Yeah, that is it. That's of all the drums I have, that's the one I really would not know how to.
And that's a 5-inch, right? Like a 5x14.
And it's it's an odd bird because it's not like a collector grade all original pristine. It's none of that.
Yeah.
It's a proper welded 2-piece shell from the 20s.
Yep.
When I got it, Jim Pettit, the guy that owns
I know
Memphis
Jim.
Drum Shop, he was the guy that I will always be eternally grateful to for selling it to me.
Was it one of his personal
It was.
snares?
It was part of his collection.
That's a
Even
special
though
drum.
it wasn't all original, it was part of his stuff. And he introduced me to how valid those drums are.
Best snares ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
And
my opinion.
he showed me in the form of that drum that I've got, and it's just everything wrong. It's a 2-piece welded shell with die-cast hoops on it.
Sure.
And those really wide Gretsch strainers.
Yep.
I forget how it's like 72 or something. Anyway, whatever it is the really wide one. And a P85 from the 70s throw off.
Okay.
I mean, really. It's just not original. But that drum just became a part of me.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how many hundreds of records that thing's on.
Yeah,
I don't
believe
know.
it.
And a few years back, quite a few years back now, Kurt Waltrip asked me if I'd be interested in doing a signature drum, and he was going to do a reproduction of that drum.
Ah.
And we never quite got there.
You should. That would be, I mean, Kurt would be the perfect guy to do that,
He would be
too.
the right guy,
Yeah.
but it's got to be a 2-piece shell.
Yeah, yep.
And there aren't many people that do that.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know anybody that does that, maybe other than Adrian.
That's the
Kurt's
only
one.
guy I know of. Because without that beaded, that welded shell, that's a big part.
Oh, yeah. That's
Of
what
the
makes that
whole
sound.
thing.
I don't know why nobody's tried to do it. I mean, that's literally my all-time favorite snare drum.
Me too.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why those Black Beauties that you helped me find and, or buy, those, oh Lord, those are good drums.
Have you got a chance to use those? quite a
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah.
Good.
They're awesome. They're
Yeah.
awesome. But they're not,
They're not the,
they're
I
not
get
that
it.
one. Right?
Yep.
That's the one.
That's
I really
awesome.
would be, I'd be in a heap of trouble without that drum.
Yeah. Is it
I
a
really-
5-inch or 4?
Five.
4, okay, 5-inch.
Yeah. And Adrian made me a reproduction P38 for it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
Awesome.
I'm so glad he did.
Yeah.
So it's got a pseudo original throw off on it
Yeah.
now.
Probably sticks better though than the
It
old
does.
ones.
It
Old
sticks
ones tend to-
way better. Yeah.
That's awesome,
so
man.
I'm a happy guy. Yeah, yeah.
And that's like for touring and sessions, just whatever you throw it on.
I don't tour with it so much anymore
Mm-hmm.
because the Diamond Series stuff that Adrian does,
Yep.
I use those
Yep.
if I'm touring. But I just, they're amazing too.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just, man, I don't know. I can't even imagine being without that drum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
figured
wouldn't
you'd
know
pull
how to
that
make
one
a
up.
living anymore. I used it today, this morning.
Ah, well,
Yeah.
I'm glad it found you.
It, oh boy, me too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or is there any other pieces
Any other piece?
that you want to talk about?
Well, there's that Silver Sparkle Rogers kit.
Ah, I remember that one. 12, 16, 20, right?
Yeah, 12, 16, 20. That's a great. Oh God, that's a great kit.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing kit. All my Craviatos are I mean, my maple kit that survived the fire in L.A.
Yeah.
I lost one,
I remember you saying
but thankfully I had another maple kit in Carthage that I used for Joe. And the first bass drum I got from Johnny is on the kit that is in Carthage. So I'm really grateful about that.
Yeah,
that because there are rub marks from my boots because I have this tendency where when I'm sitting between songs and we're killing time or whatever, I'll prop my foot up on the hoop of the bass drum, and so that top of that hoop is it got a little bit of the dark rubber
Oh, yep, sure.
smear on it, And so it's just a mental thing to see that kick drum.
Yeah.
Plus it sounds so good. Anyway,
I believe that. Yeah.
love those drums.
Yeah.
Love obviously being a part of Craviato, everything.
Yeah.
That's a family to me.
Actually, that's a good question. I was going to ask that later anyway. Tell us a little bit about that, if you will. Like about, I know you were an artist before with Craviato, but obviously now you're still an artist, but have a different role in the company that you did before.
An additional role to the endorser part. And I'm the what's called the VP of Artist Relations.
Ah, big title.
It is. It sounds really important. And on some days I kind of do feel important about it, but then on other days I go, what have I gotten myself into?
Sure.
But yeah, it's like, it was when I came back to Craviato, Steve Maxwell really made it, he made it really, really easy for me to do it. And when we were discussing me coming back, the concept of coming on board with additional involvement to just being an endorser and supporter felt full circle to me because I have been with Johnny since the very beginning.
Yeah. Yep.
And I had this relationship with him that it just trumped every other kind of endorsement relationship I've ever had with anybody, and I can't even fully explain it because I don't know, maybe it's the thing of like, when you come into a relationship with somebody, it just goes really deep and spiritual. And it's the only time with drums I've ever felt like if that guy's hands are on it, that's where I want to be.
Sure.
You know? And not to say that there aren't amazing drum companies out there. There are. And I've endorsed some of them and were treated like I was treated amazingly.
Yeah.
But there's this thing with Johnny just went deeper somehow,
Yeah.
And I always liked the idea of the small shop, the underdog, the little engine that could, all that stuff. And all the while, this guy is making this stuff, and everybody's going, that'll never make it. That's never going to succeed. That shit's too expensive. Blah, 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 And they're still doing it.
Yep, they are.
They're still doing it.
Still just as respected, yeah. Everyone loves that stuff still.
And they truly are, by my estimation, the finest drum making in the business.
Sure.
They changed the business.
Yeah, definitely.
They really did. You can see these kits with other manufacturers where they do the bead.
Yep.
Well, it's a decal or a paint job.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
No, man. Well, that's imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah.
The drums aren't great because the inlay in the middle of the shell is cool. The drums are great because they're great.
Yeah.
And there's one guy that gets the credit for that.
Yeah.
That's my boy. And it's nutty as he was at times. He's Johnny Craviato.
Yeah.
So to be a part of that, and to be a part of the process of the evolution of the company and get to participate in that, with my own ideas and suggestions that are welcome. And, and to go over to the shop and watch those guys do what they do is just the coolest.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing. And it's the right time in my life and career to get to do something like that,
Yeah.
The timing's good.
Yep.
So I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I wasn't sure I would, but I really dig it.
Good.
Yeah,
That's great, man.
I want to work with young artists in the best way I can to help them get their hands on stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because it's game-changing gear.
So a lot of your roles at talking to a lot of the artists that are signed and kind of just making sure everybody has what they need, or I know you have a bigger role than just that, obviously, but is that
but that's
obviously a big
that's
part of
the nuts and bolts really are that. I mean, it's like somebody has to, like if there's I'm dealing with stuff right now with helping put some backline together for the UK, and because there are needs for some of the guys on the roster, they need backline. Yeah. And historically, there hasn't been a whole lot of Craviato stuff available to backline. And I really want to try to change that. Because that brand, the profile, it needs to be out there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, and we're all trying to come up with ways to do it better, but not replace what Johnny did.
Yeah.
It all stays true to the form,
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's really a beautiful thing, yeah. And hopefully, we hit a home run of the sorts that just elevates the company even more, But regardless, I don't see it going away.
Yeah.
The drums are too good.
They are too good.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it's a good crew. Yeah.
It is.
You
A
and all the
small
guys over
crew,
there. Yeah.
but it's a good one.
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome, man. Okay, this is a nerdy drum question.
Nerdy, okay.
But a all-time favorite consolidated to a top 5 favorite drummers of all time that you look up to.
Top 5?
Or at least the first ones you think
first
of.
couple or whatever. Yeah. Well, Al Jackson.
There you go.
Boom.
That'd be on my list.
Yeah. Let's see. James Gadsden. Bill Bruford.
Gosh, that's a good list.
Jeffrey Porcaro. Even though I don't play like him, I would have to say John Bonham.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he was just so influential.
Yeah.
In rock and roll drum playing. I mean, killer.
Absolutely.
Killer.
That's a badass list, man. All right. So during COVID, when everything came to a halt, the whole music industry came to a halt, were you able to still find some work during that time, or what
Yeah.
kept you busy? Did things change or
Man.
shift? Of course, well, live, of course, I'm sure
Yeah.
things shifted, but
I did keep working. Strangely, the first 3 months of the lockdown, initially, no. The answer is no. I didn't play at all, at all.
yeah.
It's the longest I've ever gone in my life since I began playing drums. Seriously,
Yeah.
that I've gone that long without playing, and I had to get clever and desperate even at times. And what I did is I went to Guitar Center in Westlake, up pretty close to where we live.
Yeah.
And they had those, I don't know about all of Guitar Centers, but the one out there had like a little drum section, and on the wall there were like 3 or 4 electronic drum kits, with pads,
Yep.
and that's where I went.
You just go
I just went
play
to,
over there?
I just would sit down
Okay.
at one of those, and most of the time there'd be these kids and they're bashing
Sure.
and playing, and they, got their headphones on, and I would just go in there and sit down and just play a groove for a while, just to go, okay, this still talks to these, that still talks to the,
Sure.
And so, yeah, for the first 3 months, that's what I was dealing with.
Yep.
And then I managed with John Carson from Pearl to arrange to get like one of those little casual, tiny little drum sets that cats can throw in their trunk and go do like a bar mitzvah or whatever.
Oh, sure.
Those little bitty. He hooked me up with one of those sets that I ended up putting at a neighbor's studio. And I was finally able to sit down behind an actual drum set.
Probably felt nice.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. But I started, when air travel opened up again, I started flying back here.
Yep. I remember that.
And there were a handful of studios that were still willing to open the door. And I was one of the musicians that was willing to come in the door and work.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
thankfully, I never got it so far.
Lucky. All
Nothing.
right.
And, I'm boosted and everything now, and hopefully it'll stay that way. But
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really weird time because I would be on flights, and there'd be 10 people on the jet.
Yeah. I
It was
remember that.
really
I flew a few
weird.
times during the beginning too.
Yeah.
It was strange.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that was wow, that was intense. Mostly because I started feeling like I'm going to lose my chop here. I can go a couple of weeks without playing, no big deal.
Yeah.
But 3 months,
Yeah, that's a long time.
you start forgetting how stuff works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is all a lot of fine motor skill things are going on when you're on a kit.
Yeah.
And if you don't keep doing that, you lose it.
Yep. That's true. That's true.
But I got
well, I'm glad
through.
you kept going.
Yeah, well, I had to. I had to find a way to keep paying the light bill,
Yeah.
Or at that time, we had to figure out how to pay the RV lot that we were living on,
Yeah.
because we were doing a lot of that.
Yeah. Is that something you want to talk about, or is that a
Sure.
To,
Yeah. Well, I mean the fire. You mean? Yeah. Yeah.
that was well before COVID.
2018. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. We got the double whammy.
Yeah.
We got the
Gosh.
fire, lost everything, Woolsey Fire took our home and studio out and everything we owned. That was really, really hard. You know, it was a level of displacement that I never thought I would even remotely experience. I had no understanding of that. What it felt like to, oh, you're homeless.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with your reality? What, you know? We had some really, really tough hurdles we had to climb over.
Yeah.
Just to exist, you know.
I remember seeing that post
Oh,
because
yeah.
we were keeping. My whole family lives in California, so we were keeping a pretty close eye on it. And so I was watching all my friends that lived in California close to those fires. And I remember seeing your post. It was like a before post that the fires were coming.
Yeah.
And then your post after that, it's like everything is gone.
Gone. Yeah.
'Cause-
And it's a bizarre thing. You just learn how to, you know, you have to get through it. And then you learn how to travel light, you know, and then you start, we started figuring out is we can travel light. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's just the end of those things that we had attachment to.
Yeah.
And, you know, then the process of rebuilding in LA County with planning and codes being the most difficult place in the United States to get permits with. Fought that battle, and so, you know, we went through a whole lot of stuff, and timing being what it is, and us sitting here right now, we're just a few weeks away from finally having our home back, you know, and we can start putting the studio back together. I've got good people helping out with, you know, getting that gear and ordered and picking the right things, and you know, Wendy's like going at it 90 miles to nothing to get the house looking pretty inside, you know, and all that.
Good,
Nesting.
good.
She's finally getting to nest.
Yeah.
Even though she's
Yeah.
not living in it yet, she's getting to nest. The process, which is, she's desperately needed that.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, and our stepson is going to finally have a place to actually sleep with his own room that he can shut a door behind and have some privacy that he hasn't had in 3.5 years with us,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's a big deal, and it's almost done. You know, so 3.5 years later,
Yeah.
you know, we'll have a home.
Good for you guys for
Yeah,
being
thank you, man.
so patient, and
Yeah.
gosh, it must have been hard. But
Oh, hard's not even the word, man.
yeah.
We many times almost didn't make it,
Yeah, I believe
you know? It's a gut check like nothing I've ever experienced.
Yeah. That happened to you pretty quickly too after moving out there.
Yeah,
Like
we
you just moved
we
out
were
there.
married in March of 18, and the fire happened in November.
Yeah.
We were newlyweds.
Yeah.
We didn't even know each other that well,
Yeah.
you know? So we burned through the get to know each other phase through massive adversity.
Yeah.
And, you know, which has only it's bonded us even more than we could have
I
ever
believe
imagined.
that. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a lucky guy.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, she's a lucky girl.
I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what, man, what I'll also say is, you know, I'm having a love affair with LA that I never thought I would fully have.
Sure.
I really am feeling a deep sense of connected, heartfelt roots there now.
Good.
And
Oh,
I
that's
have
great,
the
man.
same thing here. And I'm really blessed that I have two cities that I actually really love,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you still spend a lot of time here too.
I will not change that
Yeah.
until they say You can go home now.
I don't think they'll be saying that.
Well,
Yeah.
you never know. But I'm gonna ride it as long as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I ain't going nowhere until somebody says, "Go away."
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, thank you so much for doing
Thank
this.
you, man. I
appreciate
appreciate
it.
you wanting to sit down with me.
Yeah, we sure love you, man. It was
Thank
good.
you. Love
Yeah.
you back.
All right.
Yeah.